Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Simon. I have the honor to moderate this amazing panel today. As you see behind me, there's a slight mismatch in some of the faces. Go figure it out by yourself. So we are blessed to have some new joiners in the panel. So this will be slightly spontaneous with the two of you, okay? But Jose is prepared, so we're asking you to be perfect, okay, today. No expectations.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, no pressure. And yeah, we're covering a very...
None of us are sitting in the right spot, even
Yeah.
Jose. So
Right, okay. But I
very
am.
confusing.
So at least one person matches.
Spontaneity.
Yeah, but it's not about me right now. So we're going to talk about ownership. And this is something, a word that I use very frequently when my normie friends ask me what Web3 is about. I usually say, well, it's about digital ownership, right? It's about you having the opportunity to finally, first time in the world, in the history of the internet, really own digital goods by yourself, right? With no middleman in the middle, completely cutting them out, and you are in the power of your digital assets. But it's always slightly on a level that's not really tangible. So what I'm expecting from this panel today is to make Web3 ownership a little bit more tangible and understand what's really happening here with actually real-world use cases. And I think I have good people for this on the panel. We have Jose. So Jose has a very long experience in digital industry. Can I say you've been working decades in technology?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so a long time, and the past years focused on blockchain. So currently, you are helping different kind of projects and companies to implement blockchain technology to create new use cases. That's correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So I've been in this online world for the last probably 20 years, and I've been riding every single wave of new technology developments.
Yeah.
Right now, we made the decision to move into blockchain and artificial intelligence because these are the tools that I think will provide a little bit of support to the current anarchy that exists within the world. It's total anarchy.
That's a statement. I actually have a question, which is, what is a crazy belief you have about the current world and maybe also the future? And I think this is already a good crazy belief. We're living in an anarchy. So okay, let's make a point to that. Leo.
Yeah, kind of like what you mentioned, like what is Web3? So I think I am probably qualified to talk about this because I launched a layer 1. I was like one of the first employees at Near Protocol. And why do that? So I think you have to take a look at the landscape. When I started in the business, and I'm from the Valley, so from Cupertino originally, and I started in enterprise software, perpetual licenses, and software companies charging 11% renewals and fees every year. Doesn't really matter. You own the software, but you really don't really own the software. It's behind a firewall. I mean, sure, what may have you. And then came basically the cloud, so which now we dubbed it as Web 2. So I lived through that era. So 10 years of cloud. And there was a lot of hesitance. I mean, coming from the Valley, like, we're the most progressive when it comes to software and adoption and so forth, we're those people. Even us, we were like, oh no, nobody's going to touch the cloud. It's very, you're putting your data with somebody and you're trusting your entire data with one entity, whether vis-a-vis Microsoft, Amazon, what may have you, take your pick, right? So there was a lot of pushback for that. But now every single company is on the cloud. When is it? I mean, having like Web 1 is an afterthought. No one's building on-prem. Softwares are not coming out on enterprise software. Everybody's building basically for Web 2. That's what's going on because that's just the norm. It's just easier to put your infrastructure there. So come 2016, 2017, the era of layer 1s. That's where I came in with Near Protocol, Ethereum. There's a lot of other great Solana and all these guys we started building because we said, enough is enough. There's have to be a better way because now you're building on Web 2 and you're putting all your trust with one entity. They can do whatever you want, right? So you violate one terms of service, your data is gone, right? And your entire business is shut down overnight. They can do that. So we said that's not okay. That's where you want to build a decentralized solution that's also good for the world and gives you more control, all of those things. So we became some of the naysayers who said, okay, let's just not put everything on the cloud. Let's just start building for Web 3. So that's just the journey from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3. It's just another label, but it's just what you really want to do. Do you really trust your entire business business with one entity, right? That's the thing. Where I'm from in the U.S., we have FDA, which is the Federal Reserve, and what they do is they give you insurance on if your bank is robbed, for example, right? But only up to $250,000. Let's say you have $1 million in the bank, right? You only get $250K, the rest is gone. Centralized institution. That's why you say you keep a hardware wallet and all those things, and that's where the entire revolution started. We said enough is enough. We don't trust in big banking, too big to fail and so forth. You know what happened with 2008 collapse. So that's where this entire industry kind of like spun off from. The first white paper came out back in 2015 for the Bitcoin, and basically everything changed. So I lived through this entire era of the last days of Web 1 and early days of Web 2 and all the way even till now, and the early days of basically Web 3. So that's kind of like the backdrop and the story. So
yeah. That's great. That's great. Do you wanna?
That was like the perfect introduction, because essentially our game could not have been built without the story that Leo just told. So we then are the sort of consequence of that trajectory that you just outlined. So I love that you just kind of laid out that history. So I'm Saro McKenna. I'm the founder and CEO of DaCoco, and we have built the Alien Worlds game, which is the most played blockchain game in the world. We also have the most called smart contract in existence. More people own our NFTs than any other NFT collection in the world. More wallets own our NFTs. And we are a game that is built entirely on chain. So our gaming logic actually runs on chain. So we are an application, a decentralized application that is running its logic and its application on a blockchain. And that is a consequence of what Leo just talked about, right? So being able to have those underlying protocols that are decentralized, public permissionless chains that then allowed an application like ours to come along and say, hey, how about we try and actually encode game logic on one of these things? And what then does that make possible? And of course, what it makes possible is the subject of this conversation, which is ownership of assets. So what we were able to do is to put blockchain tokens, both fungible tokens, NFTs, but also DAOs, which have a token and are a tokenized entity in themselves, to put all of those directly on chain. And as Leo just was building up, what that means is that those really belong to you. They don't belong to somebody else who can turn it off because you violate one of the points in their terms and conditions. So let me give you it, because you were saying, let's make this tangible.
Yeah.
So, okay, you want to own an Alien Worlds NFT. You can go into our game and you can acquire them through playing. We're a play-to-earn game, so you can earn the NFTs through playing different things. You can also go onto a marketplace and buy one from another player. Okay, so once you have that Alien Worlds NFT, in what sense even is it an Alien Worlds NFT? Well, it's issued on the Alien Worlds collection, but that's pretty much it. By the time you own it, you own it. You own it in your wallet. And there's nothing that anyone can do to take that away from you. The whole entire chain that it runs on would have to somehow be corrupted in order for that ownership to be alienated from you.
Saro,
and the whole premise of blockchain technology is that it's very difficult to do that.
on that point, hold your breath right there, because I think that's a great point, and it sounds so good, right? You own your assets. But now the question is, do you care? Like, maybe you care, but do the people care, right? Because that's what I find always the most difficult part about all this. Like, Web3 is great, right? Ownership is great, decentralization is great, but people need to care about this, and they need to really start to get a real benefit out of those models that is better than what they're used to. And I think gaming is one of the best industries to explain this. Would you say, maybe either Saro, I think maybe Leo, you can pick up on that. Would you say you have cracked the nut and you have now found the holy grail of convincing all the people to turn into Web3 because you have the perfect pitch for them? Or are we still in this kind of building phase, infrastructure phase, where we're building the applications, but we're still not there in terms of the perfect use case to bring all those people into the space?
No, we're not there yet. In my humble opinion, as long as, I mean, we need the masses of the world, the Googles, the Metas, they have billions of users, right?
Yeah.
The reason they use all their tools, it's free and it's easy. Web3 is anything but easy. You have to create a wallet. Most people don't even know what a wallet is. I have an email. Can I sign up with my email? No, that's not how it works, right? So they love to do like KYC and all that great stuff. But that's just our world is a little different. And why do you care of ownership? You should care of ownership. because we're heading towards this subscription economy where everything is subscription, right? You barely own anything now. Like even, so I'll give you an example, like this phone right here from Apple, right? They make a great phone, $1,500 phone. Do I own this? I mean, I went on the subscription side, but I wanna own it, right? But that's what they're doing, like just pay $60 a month and then you can have your phone. Same thing with, we're looking at the housing market, like BlackRock and Vanguard is basically, in my country, in US, they're basically buying every single home that is out there, right? They're outbidding everyone and users can't, so you're not gonna be homeowners anymore. So you're gonna be subscribing towards, having some sort of a home over there. Is that okay? Is that good? Not really. Good for the corporations, but not really good for, for the people.
But somehow I disagree a little bit with your point. First of all, I find that in our company, we find people that really care about the Web3 and the advantages that it brings to them. You said that it's very difficult for people to have free access to all this, yeah?
No, novice people, masses, they don't understand.
But
so,
this is what we are here for.
Yeah.
For instance, our company, EuroGSAT, what we do is to make it simple for people. Right now, we have been involved in the developing of a new concept for the control of copyrights for authors, for musicians, writers, that kind of thing. That is general public. You have millions of these people that produce content. So far, this has been coordinated and controlled by the editors. They are the ones up until now in Web 2.0 to Web 2.5. Those are the ones that have been controlling all the sources of income and all the promotional activities. With the Web 3.0, what we are doing right now is different. We are giving the control back to every single individual, every author, every composer. And we have enabled recently, when we put it live, and you can all see it at tedro.com, which is the organization that controls all the rights for authors in Spain. You can upload your book, you can upload your musical notes, you can upload there, and we help them to create an NFT. We help them to avoid, through the traceability of these NFTs, we help them to avoid piracy acts. We help them to claim the credits. We made it simple for them. So this is, we only have to think about, the whole process is complex, but this is why the technicians are here for, to make it simple for people. So this is one of the projects where I can feel that people care, and our program there has been really well received by all the authors. Yeah. They really are using the technology.
And this, Jose, is a great example of a company finding a niche, a very specific market, where blockchain-based ownership models make sense. But I make a bold statement right now. I would say that, I don't know about the number, but let's say 70% of what's out there that is using blockchain to enable new ownership models is bullshit. And then there's 30% where people actually care about. Now, Saro, for example, tell me, why in gaming would people care about this ownership model? Why do gamers want to go to Alien World instead of going to a Web 2-based game? Like, what is the motivation for them to play your game? Does it need to be more fun than all the other games and that's it? Or do you actually have a case with this Web 3 ownership way to attract an audience? Or is it a completely different audience, maybe?
Yeah, so you could be right that ownership doesn't matter. But I don't think that that really aligns with human nature. I think that people know when they own things. And in fact, sometimes they only know it in the negative, right? When something gets taken away from them. Yeah. I heard the other day that one of Vitalik Buterin's inspiration for Ethereum in the first place, you probably know this, is that he was playing World of Warcraft or some game, and they basically took his level away from him all of a sudden. Yeah. And he just couldn't deal with that. Right? He was like, no, this belongs to me. And so he's like, well, I'm going to create an unstoppable system.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes we don't appreciate the rights that we have until they get taken away from us, or when we see them getting taken away from someone else, and then all of a sudden it twigs that maybe we don't own that thing. Now, clearly the rule of law, private property, makes a big difference in systems, right? It's one of the reasons that Western liberal capitalism flourished once we had democracies and legal systems in which people had faith that if they engaged in contracts, those contracts would be honored, and there was a judicial system that was independent and so on. So it does make, I mean, I think it's incontrovertible that ownership makes a big difference at a philosophical level. And then at the sort of more practical level, in terms of how gamers, for example, are using those within games, it certainly can happen that games achieve a similar level of people feeling a sense of ownership and taking, for example, entrepreneurial risk and investing huge amounts of time in those game systems. For example, EVE Online is a good example of that. It's a game that is not currently a blockchain, doesn't have a blockchain associated with it at present, and yet people act as if it did. So they feel ownership, and in fact, they can. Part of the reason for that is that they can actually go off and trade those assets outside of the system.
So we don't need Web3. We just need to create the illusion of ownership, and everyone is happy.
But let me tell you, it took them 10, 15, 20 years to do that, and they also had to be extremely. They took many decisions that showed the community that they were a trustworthy custodian, that they wouldn't, for example, take. So they had to build up a lot of reputation over time that allowed the community to have faith that if they invested time, created enterprise, created what within their system is private property, that would be honored.
Yeah.
But what we were able to do in Web3 was within a matter of a year, people would develop a similar sense of trust and faith in the system because it was built on a public permissionless chain. So it fast tracks people's sense, their realization of ownership, agency, and then their willingness to take entrepreneurial risk and to develop out the system in tandem with the founders.
Am I on the right track stating that a very elemental part of all this is education? Because you need to make them understand that that is actually the case, right? Like, they need to understand that it is a safe system. They need to understand to a certain degree how blockchains work. Otherwise, they don't get this. If they don't get that they're actually safe with their with this ownership model, then why would they come to you instead of Eve? Leo, you can react to that if you want.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problem is kind of like what you said, onboarding the user. So the onboarding user experience is not as fluid as what other companies have done, and that's what the Valley has done really, really well. They've like made it so much more easier for you to just basically onboard. Give us your phone number, text message, boom, you're on Twitter, X, what may have you. So the onboarding is just super, super easy. That's it's a funnel, like when the funnel comes in and how you actually get people in. So the barrier to entry is very low. In Web3, it's a little bit difficult.
Right. And how do you tackle this as a marketer yourself with a long track record as a marketer, I believe, right?
Just better education, how you create a wallet, kind of like what he said. Like they actually make a consistent effort and a conscious effort to make people understand like how do you run the systems, how do you create a wallet and so forth, and
so
actually not just create a wallet. Yeah, like what are you going to do with the keys, right? So that's because people just forget keys. Here, if you forget your password, no problem. You just click on forget password, you get an email, right? And then you click on a couple of links and you're back on. Forget that about it in our world, right? You lose your keys, you're done, right? So you're never going to get it back. Yeah. So I think it's really about onboarding and educating the customer, and we just need to collectively do a little bit of a better job on doing that. People over here, they know what I'm talking about. They know, right? But I'm talking about novice people who just don't understand what this entire world is, and they're trying to come into our world. So I think we have to build a better onboarding system for those guys.
Yeah, we have to swap the audience for normal people, and you guys go out there and like spread the word. Like you already know it.
Pick one.
Anyway,
my recommendation is pick one person and teach them. So
right, good stuff. Okay, Jose.
Let me just get a little word with regards to this onboarding people.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit of bullshit here, just to give you an example of onboarding people. What we do in our company is try to make things easier for everyone who we want them to be on board on something. For instance, some of the projects that we're working on are related to the management of CO2 rights, the CO2 emission rights, okay? And all of it starts with bullshit, literally bullshit.
What does that mean?
Yeah. The actual bullshit.
Okay.
The shit from the bull
okay, I'm not used to talking about actual bullshit. Okay,
so
elaborate.
We get on board the farmers to produce green gas, for instance. Okay, so we are in a project that we are involved, and we are doing all these blockchain activities, everything related to the Web3. And what we do is to do a whole process of traceability so that we know that the shit that comes from this cow ends up becoming
That's amazing.
a green kilowatt or
No, it is.
whatever.
It is a fun.
That's part of it. And the good thing, just allow me, the good thing with this is that in the test that we're doing it with farmers where education is not the highest thing on the right, but they're using it now, the trial. It's a matter of communicating, I think, telling them you can do it and you can do it easily by just putting this thing here that controls and does the traceability. Education helps, and everybody, especially in Western Europe, in Western countries, the level of education, everyone has heard about blockchain. Anyone in the streets, you talk to them, and they have heard the term. They don't know how to use it, but maybe we can help them use it.
Did you want to?
No, fun fact on that. I mean,
Yeah.
cows do create more methane gas than anyone else, so they pollute the planet. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. No, that's great. Okay, I think like Jose, you're a good example of different use cases as well. Like we have two people in the gaming industry, which is I think actually this is one of the toughest industry to kind of get into as Web3 person, because you have to convince the people that already game and are already used to those kind of environments to switch and go somewhere else. For me, this is like startup school 101. You need to solve a problem, a pain they have right now with your technology and do it better than than the old ones, right? What would that be? Like what kind of pain, what kind of problem are you literally using for those users? Like what are you solving for those users that you couldn't solve or that they can't solve in the Web2 game? What is it? Saro, you can
Yeah, I
comment.
mean, I think the fundamental premise of blockchain technology is bringing people together peer-to-peer in a trustless way, where there isn't an emphasis on an intermediary or a middleman that owns a proprietary stake in the system. So what blockchain environments are good at doing is creating community, creating bilateral relationships between people directly,
Yeah.
where they feel like they're able to kind of take increasing levels of like ownership within their community. They can have different types of levels of responsibility. So for example, in our DAOs, we have different ranks within that. You can run to be a custodian or you can just be a voter. I think that you can achieve that type of community in other games, especially sort of outside of the game itself, so through live meetups or other sort of external groups that the gamers create. But inside the game itself, you're mainly in a sort of situation where you're a consumer of the game. And people want to have a more active, some people want to have a more active role. Some people just want to be 100% casual gamers. And in fact, in our game, there's also a role for them. So you can just mine or just go on missions.
Yeah.
But there's also this way that you can be a community member that then takes on greater and greater levels of responsibility. And I think that that only happens in other, more traditional games outside of the game itself, where they form these communities themselves, because human beings will do that. But in our case, it's built in, and there are reward mechanisms built in.
Right.
I think that's the pain that's being solved.
Okay, now I would like to make another statement and see your reaction to that, if I'm true or false here. Another belief I have is that you have to kind of fall once and get hurt a little bit in the old system to understand the real benefit of Web3. What I mean by that is exactly the example you brought earlier about like losing your very valuable item to the system, right? Which is just not fair, right? Because you earned it yourself. Now this is a moment of pain for you, and this is when you will start to look for alternatives. Is that correct? Like, is that something that helps you as an industry, as the gaming industry, to get new people? And if yes, are you reliant on this pain? Do they need to like feel this before coming to you, or can you provide them something more, right? That they would just swap from place A to place B.
Yeah, so, I mean, the first thing that I would say is that I don't think we're actually primarily acquiring users from traditional games. I think that we're primarily acquiring users who are
Already
interested,
Web3.
Or I mean, we were, for example, Alien Worlds was one of the places where people created their wallet for the first time. So I think, especially when markets are buoyant, people are trying to figure this technology out, and a game is a really nice way in because it's low risk, it's not financialized, it's clearly a game. So, but I think blockchain or curiosity about crypto, curiosity about Web3, was, especially in the last cycle of user acquisition, one of the main conduits for that. But we can't rely on that, right? Of course, we need to move beyond that, and all of those user experience issues, are being addressed in our industry. We're still at the beginning of the technology. I actually think, I mean, because I get asked constantly, well, how can, why isn't adoption moving more quickly or whatever? I mean, I actually think adoption's happened really fast. If you think about it, we were only at the stage of layer 2s like 6 years ago, and now we're at the stage of pretty complex dApps being run on chain. And now we're increasingly looking at user experience issues, wallets, and so on. So I think that that's a very fast pace of development.
So there are two different things what she's saying, and she's absolutely right. They're just genres and different users. That's just what it is. Let's just say if you play a game on Nintendo and you're a Mario player, right? That's what you're going to do. You're going to live on Nintendo. You're going to play those games. It's not that just because you had a bad experience, like your profile got deleted and you got so upset with Nintendo or the hardware, the console itself, that you're like, screw this, I'm going to go to blockchain. I don't think so. That's a normal user behavior. That's going to happen in terms of, I'm speaking for gamers. I'm not speaking for like, in terms of you losing your wealth or something and you're like, no, I don't trust any financial institution. I'm going to go to hardware wallets and control my own financial destiny. That's all great. That probably is more of a likelihood use case, but in terms of gaming, that's not how gamers are coming. Gamers, they just want something different. Like if somebody wants a play to earn model that other traditional platforms are not providing them, they're going to look elsewhere, and that's where we come in. So they come find you. So we really don't have to go and find people who are like new user acquisitions. I know it's next to impossible to convert hardcore gamers that are on either Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo, and convince them to come and play our game. It's just completely separate worlds that they live in. They and us. A convergence might happen at some point, but I don't see it as of today that convergence is going to happen. So there's a lot of push. Actually, I was at Nintendo Live, their conference that was happening in Seattle. Completely different user base, different audience, different gamers, and they know nothing about our world. They're just oblivious to the fact like what Web3 is and how these gamers. I mean, it's just different. It's just parents with little kids and they're coming in. It's it's more of a family environment and so forth. Completely different audience. And I don't think so kids should be having access to platforms like Web3 in our games because it's play to earn and so forth. They're too young for this. So again, different audience, different platforms, different genres. Corporations have different agendas and so forth. They sell you through kids. Disney, right? They do a phenomenal job of this, right? User audiences, younger generation, and your kids basically nag you to take you on a cruise ship or like a an event and so forth. They get you somehow. That's the business model. Works really great for them. But speaking of Disney, I was talking to somebody. They're actually pushing the envelope when it comes to Web3 because they know their younger audience is going to adopt Web3 at one point. They're building now, so they're not even waiting. So there is adoption going to happen at one point. So slowly they're building. They don't want to left behind. So that's just how the industry is evolving. So the conversion points are just different.
Okay. Then quick answer, Saro. I want to know where we're heading in the next 5 to 10 years. Will it be companies like yourself or like Leo, like new players entering the market, creating Web3 games? Or will we see traditional companies as well building Web3 games and integrating new technologies? Or will there be two camps? What is happening?
Yeah, it's definitely both. It's basically following where the capital went. So a lot of capital went into blockchain gaming, and that's now all in development now. But additionally, all of the Web2 games all have units, and in fact, numerous other publishers do as well.
Right. Okay. Great.
So building on that, we work with Warner Brothers Studios. They're one of the biggest entertainment companies on the planet. They make phenomenal movies, but they also make games. I don't know if you played their games like Arkham Asylum, and there's so many others out there they build for Web2.
Got it.
They're working with companies like us because they don't understand Web3, and they could use help, and we can use their help. Absolutely, it's cool. It's a marriage, right? Because we use their studios for sound quality and stuff like that. We can't build that level of sound quality studio. We don't have the money or the resources or the expertise to do it. So we're in Los Angeles, over there, recording and stuff like that. So yeah, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. So that's kind of like what it is. And I don't know, maybe down the road they acquire us or not. I think that's a whole separate scenario because EA Games, Warner Brother, any big studio, Ubisoft, they have deep pockets, and I don't know what the strategy looks like. Maybe you converge, maybe you don't. That's a whole different separate conversation. So
thanks, Leo. Sounds good. Okay, to wrap it up, Jose, I know you have a lot of projects you're working on. You have a lot of exciting topics, different use cases. What can you offer to the people? What can you tell them that excites them? What could you offer to the audience in terms of Web3 ownership? what would they care about?
Okay. What I believe is that any area you are working on can benefit for the advantages of putting some sort of framework where you get a sense of security in any project that you want to launch. That is done through blockchains, for instance. And I mentioned a couple of examples where I'm working, different from the gaming industry, where you can use blockchain to spread across the general public. So we have experiences working in the financing industry, in the agricultural world, CO2 rights, copyrights, and also in the minting industry.
Cool.
So everyone can benefit from that, and our company can provide the help to do the development.
No, okay. Web3 ownership taking over the world. Thank you, everyone. Thanks the audience for listening. Thanks the great panel. Have a good one.